Welcome to the DG Hamblin Show. I am DG Hamblin, and I told you last week that you're going to see some changes here and some things that I think you're going to like. If you don't like it, oh well. That's what I like. That's my show. So if you look around, you can't really see what's around us here, but I've changed up where we shoot and how we film, and this space will transform. You'll get to see that too, but yeah, you're not worried about that right now. What you're here for is to listen. Listen to me and listen to my good friend here I have with me. His name is Ron Faust, and I'll tell you, Ron is, I believe, in my opinion, the most interesting person that I know. And he was nice enough to just come over here and hang out today and just talk. So, Ron, the first question I had I want to ask you is how do you describe yourself?
Oh, just throw that right out there, would you?
Yeah.
Just a regular guy that tries to do the right thing every day.
Just a regular guy.
Just a regular guy, just like you and everybody else probably watching, trying to pay the bills, trying to get along with his family, trying to make it.
So, I don't see Ron as a regular guy. In some ways he is, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, you live close to me now, but you didn't always live here in Georgia. Where
Well, I was in California, but only the first 2 years of my life. I got out while I could.
Smart.
Yes.
Head of the curve.
My first words were, "Mom, get out of here."
And she got out and y'all came. Is that when y'all came to Georgia?
It is. We have family here. All of our family is here.
Okay. Any other stops along the way?
Well, not that I remember. I was 2.
So where did you move to when you came to Georgia?
DeKalb County. Actually, we lived in a duplex, sitting where Handy Shitty was, the first Handy Shitty on Memorial Drive.
Really?
Yeah. They knocked our place down to build that Handy Shitty.
Wow. Okay. And that place is a little different now than it used to be.
A lot different.
Yeah. You ever go back and check it
I
out?
went back recently because right across the street was the Davidson Sears building that had a tomb in the parking lot. Are you familiar with that?
No.
When they bought that property, the Crowley family made the deal that they had to maintain the funeral area where the family was buried. So when they excavated all the property, they built this large wall and maintained the graves. When I went back, my wife went back about 2 years ago because I wanted to see what had happened. And Walmart bought the property.
Okay.
And the tomb is still there, for lack of a better term, tomb.
Yeah.
It's just kind of overgrown.
Okay.
But it's still there because they still have to maintain it and take care of it. And now there's a U-Haul rental place where the Handy City used to be. It was very hard for me to find it. I did not recognize the area.
Wow. Oh, I bet. So how did you end up out here in the country in Northeast Georgia?
Divorced. My dad divorced and ended up dating and marrying a woman from Gillsville, Georgia.
Oh, I know what Gillsville is. About the size of Danielsville.
Yeah, if you go too fast, you miss the "you're entering" and "you're leaving" sign because they're the same.
I don't think there's even a stoplight in Gillsville. I think the biggest thing in Gillsville might be Craven Pottery. Isn't that right
Yeah,
there?
and she's related to the Cravens.
Really?
Yeah, she's the Ferguson family, which is the other side of the Cravens.
Okay.
There used to be a chicken house behind her mother's house, and I watched them make some of the first, the face pots that got so popular.
Oh, yeah.
Craven created those, and I saw some of the first ones that were ever made sitting in that chicken house waiting to be fired.
Really? Wow.
It would have been 1978, 77, somewhere there.
Okay, so where did you go to school then?
Well, I went to Oconee County.
Oconee County, okay.
I quit in the 13th grade.
Gotta get out of there sometime.
My social life had to change, so I had to leave school and go be here.
Right. So after high school, what did you do?
Well, I was hired out of high school as my auto mechanic. A guy I never met came in and said he wanted to give me a job. So I said, well, that kind of freaked me out. I said, well, I don't know you. And he said, I know enough about you that I want to hire you. So I took the job. A couple of my teachers had put out that someone needed to snap me up, is what Mr. Hall said. So I went to work as an auto mechanic.
So your teacher saw you had some talent there and saw how smart you are.
Okay.
Just okay. So, you know, okay.
I've wrestled with that word smart for many years in my life.
Well, you know, you and I both know. I'm how many other people know, but there are all kinds of intelligence, and you have a how to put it. You have a particular set of abilities that I want to be like this guy. I really do. And Ron will tell you he's a little humbled by that. So he's told me, but I really you have you developed this sense of morality that I think is rare. And if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about your philosophy on life and maybe how you came to.
I guess the best thing to tell you is where I think it started.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure the exact pivotal moment in my life. I can tell you that it started when I discovered God.
Okay.
And when I say discovered God, I was too young to understand Christ and Christianity, but I understood God. And I understood God because I was reading an encyclopedia.
Okay.
And I got to the anatomy part.
Right.
And the anatomy part had a picture of the skeleton, and then had the overlays of the different subsystems of the body, muscles, the veins, and the nerves. And I flipped it, and I flipped it back, and I flipped it, and I flipped it back, and I said, this can't just happen.
Right.
All right, so this can't. So that's when I understood there was something above us.
Right.
As I was an avid reader anyway, that's when Mom started pushing me toward the Bible.
Okay.
So I grew up in church. I grew up in a Baptist church in Atlanta. So, you know, they scared me a lot. But I didn't, when I say scared, they were very boisterous about their opinions of religion.
Okay.
So they were reading your face. And I didn't get along well with that, because I saw all the people around me, you know, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why trying to find God was supposed to be an uncomfortable journey. I didn't get that.
Right.
So I started looking into it on my own. And I have a basic, at a young age, I could get a basic understanding of what the Bible was. And the main thing that I got out of the Bible was, whether it's written there or not, what I got was, if you want to be treated right, treat right.
Okay.
There was a line, I think Morgan Freeman said it too, that fits. If you want to see a miracle, be a miracle. All right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the next step in that was when they gave me my IQ test, because they couldn't figure out why I was flunking out of school.
Right. Okay.
It came with psychology, what they call it, psychoanalysis, where they figure out what's in your brain.
Yes, I think so.
And what was told to my mother was that at 12 years old, I was way, way, way beyond most people on social awareness.
Okay.
And I was championing something that I called children's rights.
Right.
And the lady asked me, she said, what is children's rights? Children don't have any rights. I said, that's where you're wrong. I said, I'm 12 at the time, okay?
Yeah.
And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, I didn't ask to come here. My parents brought me here. Until the day comes that I can take care of myself, they owe me support. They owe me food and water and shelter. I have a right to that. I have a right to an education because the government says I have that right. I have that right, and my parents have to make sure I get that education.
Yeah.
So I do have rights as a child. I have a right not to be beaten, abused. I have a right to all of that.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it all started. That's when that discussion made me aware of my ability to further that concept.
Okay. So, do you remember or recall or aware of the next phase in your development of your kind of philosophy, the way you live your life?
From that point forward, I couldn't really draw out a map. All I can tell you is the next phase was expanding my own awareness. And I could tell you the next step. One of the things that changed after that was when my friends would get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was a kid. I know that I was not inclined to tell the truth when I got into trouble. I did, but I wasn't inclined to do so.
Right.
But when my friends would get in trouble, I would go ask the parents what really happened.
Really?
Yeah. I remember the first parent said, "Why do you want to know?" I said, "Well, because I know my friend is probably not telling me the truth. I just want to know what happened." So I started finding out. I realized that there was a significant difference between what I heard and what actually happened.
Okay.
And that same thing applies to all facets of humanity.
Right.
It applies to marriages, it applies to friendships, it applies to jobs.
Yeah.
I said, so when you're listening to someone and you're thinking, wow, I need to go do something about this, and I don't know if I have anything to do or not because I don't know the whole story. So my biggest change was, hey, let's start looking for the whole story.
Okay.
Made my friends angry in the beginning.
Right.
Until I took their side when they were right.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they realized, hey, this guy's he's going to pick the right thing, regardless of whether it's me or my parents. He's going for right.
Yeah.
And right is a relative term. Remember, right is somewhat malleable. So it can be worked around a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, truth may not be as malleable, but
the concept
of what's right and wrong, it's possible for two people to be right in a sense and still be at odds.
Yes.
Or for two people to both be wrong. We see that all the time. I think anybody can think of examples of that. That's really interesting. Now, when was the last time that you remember being angry over something?
Yesterday?
And showing it?
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
Really?
Yes.
I've never seen you angry that I can think of.
I don't do anger, but I snapped at one of my grandkids. I mean, I snapped.
Okay, yeah. But, you don't go into details on that if you don't want to, but I can understand because grandkids they're still learning, and do you wish you'd handled that differently?
Well, here's where things get interesting.
Okay.
Do I wish I hadn't snapped at him? Sure. I hated it once I did it. When I realized what I did, it was a knee-jerk reaction. He opened the door. He was standing with the door open, let one of the dogs out, which he's supposed to know better.
Yeah.
And I snapped something to the effect of, I can't figure out why you can't figure this simple thing out. And the kid froze. He didn't look scared. I think I freaked him out. Because I don't yell. I don't get upset.
No, yeah.
Well, when I stepped out of the car, and when I looked up at him, just frozen there. I said, this is not good. So I told him right then, I said, Landon, I'm sorry. I said, I shouldn't have snapped at you. And then I got back in the car, and Ashley, his mother, was calling to the house. I said, hang on a second, come here, Landon. And he came up next to me, and I put my arm around him, he hugged me, and I said, Landon, I want to tell you how sorry I am. I said, that I snapped at you. I said, I do not have a right to yell at you. I said, in all honesty, no one has a right to yell at you. And I said, I'm very sorry about that. And he said, well, I love you, Granddad. And I said, I understand. And he said, so do I regret that it happened? I don't like that I did it. But the situation where I got to talk to him sitting there next to me in that car would not have occurred had I not snapped.
Right.
My ultimate belief is, although I don't like this, is that things happen for a reason.
Okay.
Now you can say God wanted it to happen. I don't know. Yeah. But I think the reason it happened for me was to give me the opportunity to call him back after the problem was solved. Mm-hmm. Call him back again and reiterate my distaste for how I acted.
That makes sense, and I've always believed that I don't think that God makes bad things happen, so to speak. Some folks believe that, and I don't want to get the whole idea of God punishing people and whether He does or not, but I think most of the bad things that happen to us either we create ourselves or because of somebody else's deliberate choice. But the thing that God can do is that He can take any situation and make the very best out of it. So,
what did I do?
So you're able to make it really.
I took a bad situation and made the best of it.
Yeah, you're able to actually.
Now, I agree with you. I don't think God does anything on this planet anymore. Okay. I personally believe that when we abandoned Him in the garden, that He left us to our own way, because I don't think free will and God's intervention can coexist. I may be wrong. I think God whispers to us, gives us information, helps
Okay.
us to walk down the path, but it's still ultimately our choice to do it. I think when I say things happen for a reason,
Mhm.
I don't think God said, "Oh, I need to make him yell at his kid." I
Right,
said,
right.
I think that opportunities arise
Okay.
that we can either take advantage of or not take advantage of.
Right.
Which I try to take advantage of it in every case that I can. So do I
Okay.
think God did it? No, but I think God knows that free will is going to make these situations occur.
Okay.
They're going to happen on their own.
Yeah.
He doesn't intervene. I wouldn't want him to intervene.
Right. No, I agree. I don't think that God intervenes in a lot of things, and people often you hear people say, well, why is there so much death, or why are these terrible things that happen? And well, because men have, and women, but mankind we have free will, and they have the ability to choose, and whenever that happens, then people are going to make bad choices.
Yeah.
And I think some people take that with you, and I don't mean to be talking so much. I'm supposed to be asking you the questions, but that's kind of coming into my mind. So I think that what happens then is some people get this idea that, well, we should make people do the right thing. And what they don't understand is that when you start forcing people to do anything, even if you have good intentions, that the act of forcing people to do something becomes evil in and of itself.
Yes.
And so then all of a sudden tyrants come into power and people do all kinds of horrible things for the greater good.
Instead of learning, you're conforming.
Right.
Conforming doesn't
teach
conforming
you
is a lie.
Yeah, you don't learn anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think above all, we're here to learn to be good people as best we
can. I think that's the key to life is learning. We can't learn anymore. It's start with that's your wind down.
Yeah.
So
what about like the biblical prophets, say Noah or Moses, or do you believe that God talked to those people to deliver a specific message?
I believe personally that anything that resides in the Old Testament, I think the only way God had to communicate with man was directly. Now, it could be in the head, in the heart, whatever, but did he have to? I think he had to talk to Noah.
Right.
After Jesus got here, his direct communication was no longer necessary.
Okay.
All right, so I think the Old Testament served for the God-man connection because God was making that connection himself. But he also knew, like a child that needs to move out of the house, there needs to come a day that ends.
Right.
So Jesus came, did what he had to do, died for us,
right,
and gave us another path, which is basically just listening to our heart, because God can be in our heart, but he doesn't have to talk to our head.
Right. And I often, when I feel like God's directing me with something, it's not not in my head. It's something you feel.
You're led.
Yeah.
You are led to do things, and you're not. You can choose to be led by the mind, or you can choose to be led by the heart. I choose to be led by the heart, even though the mind is still trying very hard.
Right.
And I have to fight it every day.
Right. Well, do you think there are exceptions to that with God talking to people? Like, for example, with Paul, when he was on the road to Damascus, and he had his conversion event where he sees a light and hears. What about situations like that?
God can do anything he wants.
Sure.
Do I think that he does? I don't know, and I don't care because it doesn't have any effect on my life. Okay, but do I believe in the possibility? Sure.
Okay.
Let me put this out here.
Okay.
When we talk about this stuff, particularly the religion,
right?
There is one thing that I have that basically blankets everything I got to figure out.
Right.
There's only one fact in the world.
Okay.
One fact. And that fact is everything you believe could be wrong.
Sure.
That is the only fact. That the existence of that, when I walk out of this room, I don't know if it's here or not. It could be gone, right?
Yeah.
But the only fact that I have is that whatever I do, whatever I believe, whatever I say could be wrong. It makes me open to other opinions at all times because I'm always searching for the truth.
That is so awesome. And people don't, we get caught up in and what we believe has to be the absolute truth. And people really, they will struggle and fight to hang on to what they believe, even sometimes in the face of obvious evidence that they're wrong.
Why
And
do they
you see
do
that
that?
with anything.
Why do they do that?
Well, people don't want to be wrong. They
It
won't admit
suits
that they
them.
made a mistake.
It suits them at that time. It
Right.
gives them that warm, fuzzy feeling.
It does, and I think people don't like to admit that, man, I made a mistake. And I'm not going to,
No, they don't. I don't like to.
I don't either. Yeah, and that's why, like you were talking about yelling a little while ago, when people argue and yell at each other, it does nothing to convince somebody.
There's nothing positive in yelling.
Right.
The only time yelling is
Yeah.
okay, which I've told the kids, if we're yelling, it's because something bad may happen and we're trying to protect you.
It's like in an emergency, yes.
Yeah, it's an attention getter.
Yeah.
Only an attention getter.
Right.
Not a form of discipline, not a form of punishment. It's just an attention getter.
Right.
But as I told my son, you yell all the time. You scream at the kids constantly. All right, so why would they, if they walk out in front of a semi in front of the house, why would they think to listen to you? Because
Right.
you just yell.
Yeah.
Now, one thing he saw it with Landon. When I yelled at Landon, he stopped dead in his tracks.
Right.
Because that man don't yell. Something's different.
Yes. Now, even to the point, I don't want to kind of segue into a little something that I know is part of you. So you don't yell, and you really don't get angry because you have this really cool philosophy about if I could hurt your feelings or not. Can you talk about that just a little bit? Because this is one of the most fascinating things.
I'm not really sure what you're referring to.
Okay,
I
so
know where I think you're going, but I'm looking for what you're trying to pick up where you want me to pick up on this.
Right. So we had a conversation once about being offended. I think is how it came up, and you made the point that if somebody says something about you, for example, no matter what they say, it shouldn't make you upset because, first of all, if it's true, then it's true. And you really shouldn't be mad at the truth. And in the second instance, if it's not true, well, it's not true. They can say whatever they want to. It's not true, and it's not going to affect you. But I think most of us, other humans, have a harder time with that. We get our feelings hurt, or we get offended, or we get embarrassed, and then we get mad. And you don't seem to let that bother you.
If we've had this conversation before, you may recognize this, but I guess the main crux of what you're talking about, offense is not an emotion; it is a decision.
Right.
You don't get offended because something in your body happens. You get offended because you choose to take what was said in a negative aspect.
Right.
All right. I learned a long time ago. If you think I'm stupid, that you think I'm an idiot, there's nothing on the face of this planet that I can use to change your opinion. Only you can change that. Okay?
Right.
So in reality, in your reality, I'm stupid. Okay. Does it make me stupid? Nope.
Right.
Do I care what you think? Nope. Because it's not based in fact.
Yeah.
So if you're happy with me being stupid in your head, be that. It doesn't have any effect on me. If you run around and tell everybody that I'm stupid, I go, okay, what do you think? Well, I don't know. Well, there's your point. Find out.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I have met people because of what other people have said about me, and people go, I can't believe that, and come ask me. Which is what you should do.
Right, yes.
All right, so do I have a problem with that? No. But we as human beings tend to make our fantasy reality. Okay. We tend to make what we believe in our head factual in our life because it makes us comfortable.
Right.
All right? For you to think I'm stupid would make you feel less intimidated when you're around me.
Okay.
All right, in any aspect, think of anything. But when a
Right,
lot of
yeah.
people think when someone is smarter than them, better looking than them, there's an intimidation factor. The only reason that I don't have that is because I just don't care. I told myself a long time ago, all that matters is me and how I see me. It doesn't matter how you see me.
Right. So how do you maintain that? 'Cause that's hard for people. How did you develop that? Have you always been that way?
No, sir. And you talk about you asked about when's the last time I was mad. We're gonna back up a little bit.
Okay.
The man that you know, 15 years ago, that man didn't exist.
Okay.
Right? I was an extremely angry, extremely violent, extremely damaging person. Never hurt an animal or a human. But what made my change was I was in the backyard having an argument with a lawnmower.
Okay.
Lawnmower is not human. It's going to win because I can't. There's no way for me to win over an inanimate object.
Right.
So I'm mad at this lawnmower because it won't crank. I'm picking it up and throwing it around the yard. And I finally look at the lawnmower laying upside down out there in the grass and I'm going, this ain't right. So I went inside and talked to the woman I was with at the time and I said, I need to do something. She said, why? I said, because I'm a maniac out here in the yard with this lawnmower. She said, yeah, but you're not hurting people. And I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, if you didn't know me, you moved in next door, you see me having an all-out war with a lawnmower, are you going to believe that I'm a good person or a bad person? She said, I don't know. I said, yes, you do. You're going to see me as a bad person. And you should.
Right. You maybe be a little afraid. It's not somebody you can go to for help, or
How do you know when I'm not going to snap and move over into hurting people?
Right.
So
that makes sense.
I decided I needed a break.
Okay.
So I went to the doctor and said I want to ride the antidepressant train for a while. I said I'm not going to stay on it. I just need a break. I cannot identify what's causing this issue.
Okay.
So I rode him for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like him because it kind of flatlined me. You know,
Okay.
there was no ups and downs, but I was okay. But it was a great weight off of me. So,
Okay.
all right, when it was time, I went to the doctor and said it's time to wean myself off these antidepressants and see if I can figure out what's actually happening. So I started backing off. And I'm going to tell you the same way I tell everybody else how I perceived it. I could feel chemicals back here in the back of my brain trying to make me do things.
Okay.
You could say it's Satan if you want to religiously. You can say it's chemicals if you want to be, anatomically correct with it or whatever. For me, I didn't really try to identify what was causing it. I could just feel the effect. I didn't care where it was coming from. So I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do, and here's where we're going to roll into one of the biggest things that I tell people every day, and the only thing that matters in this world.
Okay.
I had to make a commitment. Right? When I say commitment, I don't mean, yeah, we'll get married if it don't work or get divorced. I mean, this is life. Okay? This is what I'm going to stick to. When things get bad, I'm not going to run from it. I'm going to run to it.
Okay.
All right? So when these chemicals would do their little thing, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to laugh.
Okay.
Right? In the beginning, it was like this. Because I didn't want to laugh. Okay?
Right.
I wanted to throw my lawnmower.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I made a commitment.
Okay.
And over time, that laugh started becoming ha ha ha. And eventually, it just stopped because it knew I wasn't going to win. And every now and then, I'll get that back here and I'll just smile and then it'll go away. Now, I don't know if that was a chemical thing I was doing. I don't know if it was a psychological thing it was doing. I don't care. It worked. Okay? So I went from being this angry man that used to fight lawnmowers to a man who never raised his voice. To a man who constantly said, hey, if you're screaming at me, what's wrong? Why are you upset?
Right.
Tell me why you're upset.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of fighting back and just making it worse.
Right. Sure. That makes sense.
I don't know if that would work for you, that thing, but the point is you make everything that we have in life, everything we do in life, everywhere we go in life, every failure that you bring up about someone, I can probably dig enough to find it where they failed to make a basic commitment before they started.
You know,
it's all about commitment.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me because I think about what I think it was something my mother actually told me, and my mother is She can get angry, but she
I know, yeah, I know about it.
right, but for the most part, she's very, very laid back, and I have a little more of my dad's personality, I think. But I remember her telling me that everything that you do begins with a thought to do it, and so you need to learn to decide to behave a certain way. It's not her exact words, but the general crux of what she was trying to teach me. You learn to behave in a particular way so that when the situation arises, you know how to react. I'm going to say, for a lot of my life, I was not really good at that. Actually, having this conversation I had some years ago has been done more for me as far as trying to analyze myself. And when I find myself getting angry or reacting angrily, I was a little frustrated this morning. For example, I was trying to find my camera, and I couldn't find it. And I know me, I'll put things somewhere, and I'll forget where I put it. And I was a little frustrated, and I was expressing some of that frustration physically. And then afterward, I've got to stop and think, okay, well, why was I reacting that way, and how can I do it better the next time? But for me, that process takes a long time. Change takes I don't change easily. Maybe a lot of people are that way. And maybe you make it seem to me, that maybe I feel like it's been easier for you than for other people, but maybe not. Maybe just since you're telling the story, it's kind of condensed. This time, I get more of a sense that this was a much longer process.
Getting over the anger?
Learning to not just react.
It would be nice if I could go back and outline any of the processes that I've used. But the problem is that, just like you were talking about, sitting there thinking, what could I do to make it better? We don't tend to think that way until a situation occurs that requires us to think differently. We don't know when those situations are going to occur. We don't know how we're going to react. But ultimately, the path kind of becomes a blur.
Okay.
Like, if you were the woods you played in as a kid, there's probably trails all over the place. I have a general limited idea of where trails are. I could not put them on a map.
Sure.
But if I went back to the same place, I could follow them if they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't necessarily have to remember things to a T. What we're doing is we're training our brain to react in different ways. And once that training has been set, I guess you could say, then the path that led to it becomes relatively irrelevant unless you're sharing it with someone else. And then you're not sharing the path, you're sharing the idea. So you don't have to remember all of that.
Right.
Now, how fast that can happen, I don't know. For me, I was so frustrated with being so angry all the time. I had decided it's going to change 100%. I'm turning around and going the other way.
It started with a decision.
It always starts with a decision. Decision comes thought, decision, commitment, action.
Why do you think people? This is what I see that's so unique about you is that you have this kind of constant idea of self-improvement and you self-analyze, and most people don't do that. Why do you think people don't do that?
Because they don't want to confront the things that they may have to change.
So
if you don't think about it, you don't identify a problem, you don't have any work to
do. Okay.
You're comfortable because you are the way you are. You're going to be uncomfortable trying to change it.
And so maybe also they don't want to change. They don't want to admit there's something wrong with themselves.
Nope. Don't want to put the work in. Don't want to have to change. Don't have to do anything.
There's plenty wrong.
Because it is work. Yeah. And I liken it to. I was talking to somebody yesterday we talked about church. I don't believe people go to church to find out what they need to fix. They go to church to try to find out what they're doing okay, and that's all they're happy with. They want to go in, find out that everybody, kumbaya, I'll have a hug, everybody go home. They don't want to hear a preacher talking to them about what they're doing wrong because they don't want to have to face it. They don't want to have to deal with people doing wrong. I believe that a lot of the church people that have problems with the gay community don't want to talk to the gay community. They don't want a dialogue because they don't want to know that it might be okay. Because it scares them that now they might have to deal with it in their lives.
Okay.
Instead, they want to keep trying to scare people into not doing things that isn't their choice to begin with.
See, so maybe that's why some people who are so vigorously anti-gay, you find out later that they're actually gay themselves.
Could be, and it's usually that way, yeah.
And they
in that
it's
situation,
self-hatred, and they're mad.
Yes, and then the other side is that people are afraid. I'm sure there are people. I mean, you know as well as I do. If something clicks in you, you don't have a choice in it. I mean, it's just something that happens. You got to deal with it. The best thing to protect yourself from that is to be angry at the things that you're afraid might click in you, or to punish people for. And even if that clicks in there, you've done set yourself up. That's a bad thing, no matter what. But actually, in truth, as Christians, we should want our Christian brothers and sisters to be happy.
Right.
Okay? It doesn't matter whether or not they're gay or straight. It doesn't matter if they want to wear makeup. It doesn't matter what kind of clothes they want to wear. It doesn't matter. If they're happy, that's what you want. It's the same thing in relationships. I want someone I love, I want them to be happy, even if it's without me. If it's with someone else, I just want them to be happy because I love them.
Sure.
So if you tell me you can't be friends with me anymore because you can't handle me, I'm going to say, okay, I want you to be happy. If you can't be happy being friends with me, go find another friend. I'll leave you alone. And I'll be happy knowing you're happy.
There's a country song about that somewhere.
I don't do countries. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it. Yeah. It has a very similar thing to it. You know, but most people, I don't know why, more of us can't be like, have that same kind of attitude. I don't have the way you do. I'm just trying to develop some of that, but people don't, they're more self-centered. They're concerned about themselves and others.
Because it's hard. Everything's hard in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, and what they don't seem to understand, and what they don't want to consider, the beginning of any path is complicated because it's new. Once you start down the path, your actions start to become habits. Once those habits become ingrained with you, now that is the new truth, the new way you are. Nobody wants to go through that little jump right here where they have to change themselves, even though they know what's out here would be 10 times better. They're more worried about having to change than they are about what they're going to be, what they're going to.
Yeah.
And I kind of liken it to the grass is always greener. In our life, we see people leave stuff because they think the grass is always greener.
Right.
They haven't checked.
Yeah.
All right. I could say the same thing about religion, about God. For me, going to God, the grass was greener on the other side.
Right.
All right. And that's where I am now.
Right.
Okay. The bad side is, and I say, well, you don't want to use that grass is always greener. And I didn't. Sometimes it is.
Right.
If you do your homework and find out, sometimes it is. For my son, I'm trying to show him that when his child looks at him with love instead of fear, okay, whatever he has to go through, the grass is greener on the other side of that particular situation for a fact. It's not.
Right.
Okay, we already know that.
Right.
So moving because the grass is always greener is a good motivation in that situation.
Okay. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, no, go ahead.
Don't discount it just because of the negativity we put on it. That's what I'm saying. It still could be possible. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, so I was going to ask you. Going to go back to something you said talking about discovering God and how you had this encyclopedia or whatever with the overlays of the. And so you had this moment where you realized this couldn't have just happened.
Occurred naturally.
Yeah. So you don't think that that the whole process being the end, that all this could have just been here just by chance. Why not?
Well, even if you think about the Big Bang, people talk about the Big Bang. We got here because it's two things striking in space. Where did space come from? Where did things come from? Where did anything come from? Something had to be created. Now, here's where it gets funny. Well, who created God? I don't care.
Right.
I couldn't care less, okay? Because that is above me. Right?
Right.
I'm not capable of understanding creation beyond the human construct of creation and ending.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to stick with that. All right, I don't care where God came from. I just know something somewhere had to create me because something had to come together.
Sure. And it couldn't have been by chance.
No.
So,
Even if it was, things that came together by chance weren't by chance there. They
Right.
had to be created.
no, I agree. I actually believe that the Big Bang is in the Bible. In the very first verse of Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Yeah, it's right there. And people don't understand
So
that.
science and religion can be both correct.
Absolutely. I don't. God can do anything He wants to, but I don't think He's. When He created, He knew how to create the universe. I don't know how to do it. You know, maybe one day after this life, we might learn how He did that. But we'll have forever maybe to figure it out, or for Him to teach us or something. I don't know, but no, I agree. It couldn't have happened by chance. I went through this period of my life where I had a lot of doubt about the existence of God, and there were some things. I'm a big believer in prayer, and I remember praying and saying, "Look, right now, I don't know if you're real or not, but if you are, I need a little something other than just pure faith. I need something." And then this cool thing happened that I found a couple of guys actually on the internet that were just talking about stuff. And one of these scientists, a Christian guy who actually used to be an atheist, but he started talking about probabilities and statistics, and the idea. I remember him talking about the statistical probability of a single protein being spontaneously created, because you have all these amino acids, and to make a protein you have to have the correct amino acids in the correct order. And he starts talking about the statistical probability of that, and I'm a very logical thinker, which I think led to some of my doubt. And when he starts talking about this, I'm going, holy smoke, there absolutely is no way. The statistical probability is so minute. There's a greater chance of a sudden reversal of the second law of thermodynamics and us suddenly freezing to death instantly where we sit than there is that all this just happened. Okay, so I'm going to go back some more. So out of high school, you went to work as a mechanic. How long did you work as a mechanic?
I worked for a mechanic there for about a year.
And then
well, I had bought me a motorcycle. Well, buy a motorcycle. I traded a car for a motorcycle that was chained to a pole at a trailer place in Buford. I didn't know if it would run. He took it as a down payment. But we rode. My dad went with me. I traded my car, took it home.
And what kind of bike was it?
It was a 1974 Honda CB450.
Really? Man, when I was a kid, I don't know why. I don't know why. But as an 8-year-old kid, the CB350 to me was like, I wanted one so bad. And so they made did they make a 250? And then they made a 350, a 450, a 500.
And then when it went to 650, it was a 4-cylinder.
Okay.
550 went to 4-cylinder.
And my first motorcycle, my first street bike, was actually a CB550 that my dad had bought years before. Anyway, I'm sorry. So go ahead. So you had the CB450.
I took it home, and it was a little noisy, and I got a manual and found out there was these little O-rings on the camshafts that absorb noise. I said, I'm going to rebuild it. So I took it all apart.
You had some mechanical training at that point, so it wasn't a big deal.
I don't know any training. I've never been on a motorcycle.
Okay, but you worked as a mechanic?
I worked as an auto mechanic, yeah. But I never had any training in any of it. I just did it myself.
You just did it. Yeah. Just get figured out.
Yeah, that's another thing. But anyway, the motorcycle. I took the bike home. I said, you know what? I don't know how this works, and we'll figure it out. So I took my whole engine apart, laying on the ground. I didn't like the wiring harness that was coming apart, so I just cut everything off and threw it away.
Okay.
And so I ordered the parts I needed for the engine. I put the cams in. I put the little things, new timing chain,
Right.
fire. I put it on the frame, and then I just built the wiring harness.
You just build the wiring harness.
Yeah,
Yeah, no
well,
big deal.
power goes here, and when it goes, it's got to go here, and I just built the wiring harness. So I got it all fired up, and I got it running, and I needed a part.
Okay, you're how old again? 18, 19?
19, 20,
Okay.
17. So I go to this motorcycle shop I hear of in Watkinsville, and I walk in there, I tell him what I'm doing, and he said, well, what did you who built your bike? I said, I did. He said, where'd you learn to do that? I said, I just did.
Just figured it out.
He said, well, you want a job? I said, I don't know anything about motorcycles. He said, I don't care. Do you want a job? He said, I need a Harley mechanic. And I said, well, I don't know. And I went and talked to the guy I worked for.
Yeah.
And at the time, the guy couldn't pay me much. And he said, look, he said, I don't want to hold you back. He said, I don't want to lose you. He said, but I can't pay you. But he can pay you. And he said, then you need to take the job.
That was awesome. He could have said, he could have made up something and it was a horrible place to work or some other thing. He had a foresight to do what was best for Ron. Wow.
I took the job.
Okay.
I remember there was a 900 Sportster standing right there, and he said, you need to rebuild this. I went, okay. He showed me a couple of little things, and from there forward, I was the Harley mechanic.
Wow.
So, and Jeff's wife told me, the guy I worked for the first time, she said, I'm going to tell you something. I ran into her about a year later. She said, that man has not quit complaining about letting you go. He said, that shop's never been clean. He said, he doesn't get as much work done. He said, the guys that he's hired have all been horrible. He said, he bruised the day that he let you go. He said, he should have borrowed money and paid you and kept you.
Wow.
So that, because the first thing I did when I went to work for the guys, I cleaned up the shop. He said he'd never seen his shop clean. So.
Wow. Well, don't look around too much.
Oh, no, I mean, when I'm talking about zip zorb and tools and everything,
sure.
parts all over the place.
Yeah.
But I became the Harley mechanic. I was told by my boss, he said, you pissed me off. I said, why? He said, well, I'm a factory-trained Harley-Davidson mechanic. I went to school for Harley-Davidson.
Yeah.
He said, you walked in here, you didn't know what Harley-Davidson was. And he said, and now, he said, you're 10 times better than I've ever been.
Wow.
He said, and you ain't had a lick of training. Because people would ask me, I got a problem. Oh, yeah, do this. And I still do it to this day. I fix my sister's car from Ohio. She'll call me with a problem, and I'll tell her what to do. So, I mean, that's just...
Yeah.
But to back up on this, as far as learning, I was told all my life that I had a gift. They told me my gift was intelligence, and they used to tell me I was a genius all the time.
Mm-hmm. Which is true.
My IQ supports that. The problem is, being a genius is not necessarily a gift. In fact, I took it as a curse, because I was never able to do as good as people thought I could do. All right? Okay. So if you tried to tell me I was smart when I was a kid, I wanted to punch you. I don't want to hear it. Because I did not want to have to confront the work that it would take to meet what people thought I should be.
Okay.
It fits with what we just said about not changing.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that was my bump in the road, was dealing with that. What made the difference was I realized that my IQ was not my gift. My gift was very simple. My gift is that I can look at something and I can say, okay, like this microphone. I don't know nothing about microphones.
Okay.
But if I decide I want to work on one, I'm going to say, okay, before microphones existed, what did the guy that said, hey, I need to make this thing, what did he have in mind? What was he trying to do? And I did it. The first thing I did on was a washing machine. Okay. I said, let's pretend washing machine don't exist. I want something that I can tell my wife she can drop her clothes in that comes out and clean. What do I have to have? Okay. So I deconstructed in my mind what a washing machine was. The drum, the pump to move the water, the motor to turn the thing, the gearbox to change what it does. I said, okay, I got a basic understanding of what needs to occur. I took the washing machine apart. Oh, yeah, that does what I thought here. Oh, that does what I thought here. Okay. I created what I was fixing in my head before I worked on it. Sure. Same thing applies to mechanics. There's basic functions that have to occur. Right. All right. They all do them different. They make little different things, but the fundamentals is the same. So my gift was I could picture in my head. Okay. Basically, what you would see as a schematic. Like a blow-up of something? Yeah. I can picture that in my head without knowing anything about it yet.
Wow.
And then when I disassemble it, I associate what I find with what I created as that picture, and then I can put it back together by going reverse. Everything is move this direction and then move back. That's what mechanics are.
Right. Yeah.
So that's my gift, was the ability to see the product's existence prior to it existing. I invented it in my head before I started on it.
Okay. Huh.
Unfortunately, I'm losing that ability at my age, which is very stressful.
I can understand that.
But that was my gift, was that I could picture things before I did. My dad used to get so mad at me because we'd work on something together. I'd take it apart and I'd throw bolts in a bucket.
Okay.
And he's putting bolts on a piece of cardboard with writing down what they are. And he said, I don't understand how you can pour a bucket of bolts out and put an engine together and have nothing left over. And he said, I've got everything labeled and I still have pieces.
Right.
I said, I don't know. I said, I know what a bolt has to do. I know how much depth it has to have. I know what kind of head it has. I can recognize what it needs, and that's the bolt I pick.
Wow. Yeah, I can't do that either. I mean, I can.
That's a gift. That's the gift I was given.
People will tell me sometimes, or ask me, how is it that I'm able to fix so many things, and I'm not really gifted at fixing stuff. My answer is simple. I could never pay somebody to do it, so I had to figure it out no matter how long it took.
Yeah.
You sound like you're able to figure things out a lot quicker than me. How long do you work then for that shop?
About, I probably worked for 3 years, maybe so.
Okay. Have you ever let me ask this question first. Is there anything that you sometimes wish that you had done professionally that you have not done? Or that you go back that you might do? Go ahead.
I'm not sure exactly how to answer that.
It's okay. Let me ask you this. Have you ever thought about being an engineer?
When I was younger, I wanted to do electromechanical engineering,
Okay.
which is creating the product and creating the electronics that move or function the product. I don't know why I wanted to do that, because I don't like engineers. Engineers are all...
Most of them, I
don't like talking to engineers, because they're way too good in their own mind. So.
Right.
But I guess I realized that I could basically do the same thing by correcting failures and stuff that had already been engineered.
Okay.
And there was probably a bigger need. People in my life don't need me to make them things. They've always needed me to fix things. So for me to help my fellow man, I was able to apply my intelligence and my abilities in a repairing sort of fashion, far more effective than a creation. Okay. Now, I did do creation when I built handicap vehicles. I had to create a lot of stuff to fit specific needs. So yes, I've been in the creative part, but I did far more for people fixing the equipment they already had than by creating these individual things. So I didn't really need to be. Do I regret not doing it? No, because I don't think I'd have been as helpful to my fellow man day to day had I got into engineering.
Okay. You don't wish you were working for Elon Musk or something and building rockets and
whatever? No, I think I could go toe to toe with Elon.
Probably.
As far as open mind, creativity.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I don't. It's not. He's in an area that I don't believe should even exist. Electric cars, I think, are a waste of time.
Oh, well.
But I do like I do like the reason that he commits to it, and a lot of the stuff that he says, I don't see it, but I do trust that the man knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm probably wrong on some of those things, and I hope I am.
Right.
But no, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm not an Elon Musk.
But you and I agree on the electric cars as they exist right now. In my opinion, they're actually worse for the environment than the gas cars are. Because,
and cost is going to be prohibitive forever. When you buy a $30,000 car and in 6 years you got to put $25,000 in batteries in it, doesn't make any sense.
No. I can't wait to get. I've got a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle out here. I can't wait to get that thing going.
Yeah.
Because it'll get 25 miles to the gallon, and if I've got to fix it, man, they're easy to fix.
I'm going to fix them on the side of the road.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. So you mentioned that you worked for a while what was the name of the place, or what was the
Custom mobility.
yeah? So you
Alright.
built handicap accessible things for vehicles.
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give you a I'm gonna give you a back timeline. Not timeline, but a chronological order of why I ended up there. The first job I was hired at school. Second job I was hired because I did things that he didn't think I could do.
Yeah.
After we closed the motorcycle shop, I took about 6 months off. I called it a sabbatical and just kind of did my thing. Then I went back to work for Goodyear as an auto mechanic.
Okay.
So that's been a few years working for a couple of different Goodyears. The gentleman that I worked for at Custom Mobility, he was a friend of Jim Schotten, who I worked for at the motorcycle shop.
Okay.
He mentioned having a problem with his truck, his van. Ford had tried to fix it. Nobody could fix it. He was in a handicap van. If his car goes dead, he's stuck.
He's stuck. Yeah.
So,
and this is at a time before cell phones and all
Yes.
that, so he would really just be stuck until
Exactly.
somebody out of the kindness of their heart came along.
help,
Yeah.
But he was talking to Jim about it. And Jim said, "Well, I know a guy who can fix it." And he said, "Well, but he said, no, look, I know a guy who can fix it." He said, "If you take it to him, he will fix it."
Yeah.
So I met him. I met Rick. And he told me the situation. It was pretty simple. When he went to stop, his truck would go dead. And for him, he'd have to push a button, put it in park, re-crank the vehicle, get a little gas, put it back in drive again, and take off.
Okay.
So I met him. He said, "Ford's been worked on it. They put computers in it. They put all this stuff on it. Can't fix it. They put 3 TPS switches on it, which was a common failure in that vehicle."
Okay.
I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, here's the deal." I said, "I'm going to need it for a day or two." He said, "I can't really give it up." I said, "I'll fix your truck, but I've got to have it long enough to go through this process." He said, "I'll make it work." He said, "How do you know you're going to fix it, though?" I said, "Because I'm a human. It's a machine. I'm going to win." That's what I told him.
Yeah.
All right. So I get looking at the vehicle, check this stuff out, and finally I can't get any of the numbers to support what I'm doing, so I start wiggling things, wiggling connectors and harnesses. I get the TPS switch, I wiggle it, car goes dead, truck goes dead. Turns out
Okay.
it was a bad plug. All I did was cut the plug out, bypassed it with butt connectors, gave his truck back, no more problems.
Wow. Wow.
He said,
How about that?
"I need you to come work for me."
Okay.
I did not want
Yeah.
to. I did not want to change. The thought of
Okay.
getting into handicap vehicles was scary. He kept offering me more money and to come work for him, come work for him, come work for him. Finally, he came by, drove by to where I was working, Massman's Goodyear. He said, "I'll pay you $500 cash today. $500 in your cash in your hand right now if you'll come work for me."
Wow.
I went, "Well, you're not going to give up, are you?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay, it's time to move on."
Yeah.
So I got into the handicap vehicles. Where my advantage was and what I was known for was if anybody called and said, "These people said you can't put hand controls in this car," I said, "Bring it, I will."
Yeah.
There was not a single car that and I can tell you I went through some stuff to get hand controls in cars, including taking an entire dashboard out of a Cirrus.
Oh, wow.
The whole dashboard. Mounting the
Wow.
hand controls, taking them off, cutting a hole in this one big dashboard, putting the dash on and putting the hand controls back on. But I put them in.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's why he really wanted me. But my claim to fame was that I was able to see what my clients saw. I put myself in the chair. I would read these people, and I created things that would work with what I saw they could do instead of giving up because they couldn't do what was already here.
Right. Instead of trying to make them conform, you make, that's the
I
purpose
conformed the
of,
vehicle to them.
that's the purpose of having a handicap accessible vehicle, is that it conforms to the individual. That makes sense.
My
Okay.
saying was, bring me a person in a wheelchair, I'll wrap the vehicle around.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't want to change the person in the vehicle, or the chair. I wanted to change the vehicle to fit them.
Yeah.
And I also taught people to drive, which
Oh,
a
really?
lot of people didn't like to do. Try
Yeah.
teaching someone who can't move their arms and legs to drive. You think it's
Right.
stressful?
Oh, I bet.
Knowing that if something happens, they can't go, "Oh, they're this is what they do." That's it. They're driving with their fingers.
Right.
And you're standing there or sitting there next to them. A lot of times I stood behind him in the van,
Uh-huh.
hoping to God you don't have to intervene.
Yeah.
I never did. And I was told repeatedly that the reason that they didn't have trouble driving was because I wasn't scared.
Wow.
When I wasn't scared, they weren't scared.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So people came to me a lot to teach them how to drive. Was I scared? I wasn't really thrilled, but I didn't let them see that. I didn't emote that fear.
How long did you do that?
1995 to 2008.
Okay. Wow.
Why did I leave? I got fired. Why did I get fired? Because they did what I told them not to do. They kept paying me more and more money, expecting things from me that I couldn't do, and I said, "You're making a mistake.
Yeah.
You don't want a raise?" I said, "I don't warrant this raise. What you're asking me to do cannot be done.
Right.
And you're trying to pay me more money to get me to do it, and I'm going to fail. It can't be done."
Yeah. Makes sense.
And they finally got where they couldn't afford it. 2008 recession, boom.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. Wow.
So I got to let go. They didn't want to, and after the session, they tried to hire me back.
Oh, I bet.
God, they tried to hire me back. And I went back. I said, "I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go work for you at times. I'll teach you like a guy to come in there and do what I do."
Okay.
It's hard because I don't know how to teach. But I did. I got in there and helped the guy out and got him flowing, and then they got to where they... So I kind of worked for him part-time. I said, "I want to work here if you don't need me anymore."
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. So, was that a rewarding job? I think I think in some ways it could be very rewarding.
Highly stressful and yet still highly rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Because
bet.
everything that I did could hurt someone or kill them. A mistake.
Oh, that's where the stress came from.
A
Oh, I can see
mistake in a
that.
driving controller in a lift can kill somebody.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, wow. So, did the shop there then have? Did they have a pretty good liability insurance or something?
And to be able to do what we do, we had to have a liability insurance, but I didn't care about liability insurance. I cared about people not dying.
Well, oh yeah, I get that.
But we had to have a lot of liability, but my thing was I don't want to have to use it.
Right. Yeah. I know, one thing I know about you is you really enjoy helping people, or at least you do help people, whether you enjoy it or not. You help them all the time.
There's an enjoyment there, even if there's a bad side. There's still enjoyment.
Yeah.
And I choose to go with the positive part of the situation rather than the negative.
Yeah. So why do you help people so much?
I don't know, because I think we're supposed to.
Yeah.
We're supposed to share our abilities with anybody who can use them. Yes, you have to work for a living. I won't take a day off from work to go do something for free for someone if I can't pay my bills.
Right.
But I'll work at night if I have to help them, whatever I can.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. That is not an answerable question, in all honesty, because it's not a decision I make. It's what I am. It's not what I do.
You've probably always been that way.
Yeah. So I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, that's tough.
I believe it's because of my moral and religious standing, but that's probably because it's the only aspect of my life that I think would drive someone that direction.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I believe some of us are compelled to help people. You just can't, for whatever reason. And that's one way where you and I are alike. If I am unable to help somebody, I don't know. It bothers me. It bothers me a lot. How does your so? I want to ask you a little about politics, just because your philosophy on politics as well, and maybe what that is or why you feel the way you do. Did that come from your moral sense that you developed, or?
I don't know how to answer that because I don't really know what my political stance is. It tends to be fluid.
I'm not, and I don't mean necessarily like a Democrat versus a Republican versus whatever else.
I would call myself a liberal Republican.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. What?
I like the Republicans' desire to be fiscally responsible, but I like the Democrats and liberals wanting to help. I see liberals as being wide open arms and wanting to, help everybody. And then I see your conservatives are going, wait a minute, we can do this, but it won't last because we don't have the fiscal ability to maintain.
Sure.
So I'm liberal in the heart and conservative in the brain.
Yeah, I believe that personally we have a responsibility to take care of people. I don't know that that's the job of the federal government to take care of us.
No, not really.
And
because it always comes with a price.
Yeah, and as far as the political spectrum goes, the way I see it, I don't know if you see it this way or not, but it's like the left side wants to spend money to fix everybody's issue and force people to do whatever. But I guess I would consider myself to be conservative in that I take a very conservative look at the Constitution and what the Constitution means.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in it. I don't, although I often vote, or most often, I don't know when the last time I voted for a Democrat was, but I frequently vote for Republicans because philosophically they align with me more. But a lot of Republicans aren't as fiscally responsible as I think they want us to be. Would you believe they are?
No, not really.
You look at how much they spend on. They still spend too much. I mean, do you think we should have a balanced budget amendment in the Constitution,
I don't know.
for example?
I don't know if at this point we could even balance the budget. So if you had
Well,
an amendment, I think it would just cause a shutdown. I think we're beyond that now.
would it be bad to shut down the federal government?
I think so, because they got their fingers in too many things that are going to affect us all across the board.
Like what?
Just everything.
But okay,
Well, first off,
let me, okay, you go ahead, and I'll come back.
go ahead and ask.
Well, no, I was going to say, it's not that I don't think the government shouldn't be doing certain things, but I think that most of what the federal government does should be done by the individual states rather than the federal government.
I believe federal government has a place. Federal government should be in control over roads and things like that that affect the entire country.
Why should they be in control of all the roads? Why not have the states do it?
Because you got to be careful when you get state to state, because different ideas of how a road should be maintained can affect me and you on our daily driving. If there's because the interstates go state to state, they connect everything. I would like interstates to be handled the same way everywhere. And I like the idea of being able to inspect certain things in interstates. Where you get into trouble is when you get into another state and they have done their thing, and you like pull into a place like Boston, and you're driving down the highway and you have no idea what to do where or what anything's doing. Because they come off left side on exits and it's just, they do weird stuff.
Right. So with the interstate system and the upkeep of it is paid for with federal money, but the states hire all the contractors, right? Isn't that how it works?
Well, excuse me. To the best of my knowledge, I guess what I'm saying is I don't have a problem with federal regulations of certain countrywide processes and functions. That's not what they're doing now. I'm not saying I approve of the federal government as it is.
Sure.
The federal government should not be allowed to manhandle the state government. A few years back, when they were trying to get the seatbelt laws passed, and the federal government said, if you don't pass a law in your state, because it was up to the state, we will withhold road funds. They should have all been, at that time, whoever was involved in that should have been run out on a rail. It's not their money to deny. It's already earmarked to go to those states.
Right.
So the federal government should not be able to do that.
Right.
Right?
I agree.
The federal government should have a very defined section of what it controls. The federal government can collect the funds and redistribute them if they're done properly.
Okay.
Okay, but it'd be very hard to do that properly.
Right. What do you see the federal government is doing? How do I want to phrase this question? Do you see the federal government as being effective and efficient at doing certain things?
No. Not really. I don't know if it ever will be. I think it can be more effective and more efficient.
Yeah.
But part of it being effective and efficient is getting rid of the stuff that you don't need to be involved in.
Right.
The same thing with states. But there's always a fine line. To give you an example of how I see things constitutionally, I am a gun owner. I'm a gun fanatic. I got plenty of guns. I love to play. I think I should be able to do whatever I want to do with a gun because I am a responsible citizen of these United States. However, I am against constitutional carry.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Because I think I have a license. I did what I have to do to get a license.
Okay.
I think everyone should have to get a license to conceal carry. If you're not willing to get a license, I don't trust you to have a gun to start with.
Okay, so in Georgia, before they changed the law, you had to have a license to carry a pistol, period, concealed or open.
Yeah.
So you think you should still have to have?
I don't like the fact that it's a money generating thing or anything like that. That's not my deal.
Right.
But I believe that anybody who is willing, who wants to carry a potentially mass life threatening device. I don't know where to draw the line on guns as far as rifles and pistols, but I did not find anything at all insulting or anything for them to say you need to pass a background check before you can carry a gun.
Okay.
Because I have spent my entire life turning away from things that would have been negative on a background check. I've done what I'm supposed to do. I know it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that people should be willing to go through the licensing process to be able to carry.
Okay. It's like driving a car.
I don't think you should have a right to carry a gun just because you're here. I don't know what you've done. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you're capable of.
Okay.
And there are people, I can tell you right now, I've got a few friends that I wish were not allowed to carry pistols. Okay? But they passed the background test, so okay.
Yeah.
But they're on the cusp. But there are other people that cannot carry guns right now that I believe is a good call. But there's more to it too. I have friends right now who've been in prison and have no right to carry a gun. They don't have the right to carry a gun. I don't agree with that. They should be allowed to. Because they paid for their crime. They didn't use guns in their crime. They paid for their crime.
Right.
And they're back to being citizens. But if they can't get their rights back, then they're not really back to being citizens, are they?
Right. And they can once you're at least in Georgia, once your sentence is complete and everything is done, you can immediately start voting again.
Yeah.
So why not be able to start carrying a gun again?
Yep.
The
question is what they'd have to do to determine what is a pass and fail in a background. Being in prison, being on parole or probation would be things that I would consider to be a denial.
Yeah, so.
But once you complete that and you didn't do anything wrong, everything was good, you've already proven to the state that you are a responsible adult again.
Right. Yeah.
So at that point, they should be able to reapply for the license.
Yeah, so that's actually how it works as far as voting. The whole thing has to be complete. Probation's done, fines are paid, everything's done. Yeah, no, you and I agree there. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a travesty that somebody can write a felonious bad check for say $2,000 and then all of a sudden they can't have a gun for the rest of their life.
Or if, God forbid, they had a little bit too much pot in their pocket.
Right.
They go to jail and they do something, or because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make anybody that goes to prison not be able to.
Right. Yeah.
Misdemeanor or otherwise, anything. You can't. They want to take all your rights away. But our prison system was supposed to be set up to rehabilitate, which means yes, we want you in prison because we want you to pay your price and go back to being a productive American citizen. Well, how do you tell someone that he's been rehabilitated if you deny him rights when he gets out?
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Keep in mind, I'm not talking about somebody who shot someone. I'm not talking about somebody who robbed a bank with a gun. But normal, everyday, what I call almost blue-collar crimes, why should they have to pay for what for what the murderer would pay when he got out?
Sure. I can understand that. There are some people.
How did we get here?
I don't know. I decided to take a sudden hard right and then I went down this dirt road. So, I don't believe that everybody can be rehabilitated.
No.
But I believe a lot of people can. But I think that the core issue that we have to address, if we want to really address the problem with crime and violence in our country, is where does that really stem from? And you have problems. The biggest number one factor in so many studies done, but the absence of fathers in a child's life is a huge part of that. And I don't know how we fix that. I don't know how we go back because
I don't know if we can.
I don't think we can either.
Not being a family has become the norm.
Right.
And, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of that happens because people are afraid to get married because if they do, I mean, ask any man, he figures if he gets divorced, he's going to lose everything he worked for. Because in my personal opinion, divorces are typically not fair. They typically side with the woman,
Right.
which I get because maybe the woman is the more affected because she didn't, she's not the breadwinner or whatever. But we don't have a fair system on any of that either. So you're better off just not doing it.
Yeah.
And that's what it's come to.
Right.
And also, we don't hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
Because
not like we should.
If you were me and you were friends, and you were well, let me put it this way: one of my friends.
Hold on. So you're saying that all those people who were Jeffrey Epstein's friends, we should hold all people accountable for what they did?
We don't hold each other accountable. If you go out and cheat on your wife, and I know about it, I should be holding you to it somehow. I should be telling you you're screwing up. You need to get your crap straight. Take care of your wife. You made a commitment. Honor that commitment, or end that commitment.
Right.
One or the other. But we don't do that. We just laugh. Oh yeah, his wife's probably not giving him none anyway. Doesn't matter.
Right.
We don't hold each other accountable on a man-to-man level.
Right. No, you're right, and I agree, and that's something that I mean, some of these things have been around a long, long time, But you just look in general at the level of commitment to anything anybody has anymore. So, with politics, I don't know if other people see it this way or not, but it seems to me that there's been this shift politically in the last, I don't know maybe the last 10 to 15 years, and I think that now, more than ever, it's really apparent. But the idea of Democrat or Republican or all these things have changed. And what I see now is, as the country has kind of become split apart, we see those who seem to favor totalitarianism and forcing people to do things, and you must conform, and those who believe in freedom and individual rights, no matter what individuals themselves want to do. And so we've kind of seen some political realignment, especially the last 5 to 10 years. And so when I hear somebody say, well, Republicans this or Democrats that, I can think of a lot of people who 6 or 7 years ago were Democrats who now are voting Republican, and it's not that their personal views have changed. It's just that this polarity, I think. I don't know if you see that or not.
Well, I don't think we need parties at all anymore. I mean, political parties were created so that back in the old days when you couldn't see, there was no TV, there was no radio, you needed to have an idea of what the person stood on.
Right.
A basic idea. So your parties gave you an idea.
Yeah.
Nowadays, nobody's doing what any of the parties ever intended to do to start with. And we can see everything about them every day. Why do we need to know their affiliation? Because we're going to see what they do.
Right. People want affiliation because they want a team, I think. You're part of a team. And then it goes back to the idea of how people don't like to change and don't admit that they're wrong, and they get so fixated on the team.
But you still have mass part of the country that, just like religion, I'm voting Democrat because my granddad voted Democrat, my dad voted. Well, I'm going to do this because my dad said it. I'm going to do this because the preacher said this, his preacher said that. We don't do anything for ourselves anyway. Yeah. So, we don't need any parties. I think it also I think that all qualified, which you'd have to change the qualification level, but all qualified candidates for office should be afforded the same amount of advertising time on media.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you got this guy that's got $54 billion who can put a commercial on every 8.5 seconds, and you've got probably a better guy who doesn't have a lot of money, because why? He's one of us.
Right.
He's one of the guys we'd like to see get in.
Sure.
But we don't see him because he can't afford a commercial every 15 seconds.
Yeah.
he should get the same kind of exposure as the rich guy gets.
Makes sense.
And let us get an idea of who the people are.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know,
It's not like we can't open up our computer and find out what their history is.
Yeah. 150 years ago, they would travel across the country on a train, and they would debate in every little town. The candidates would ride together, and it's so much different now.
Yeah.
We can talk about all this another time, and I'd like to. I don't know if you'd like to come back or not.
Yeah, we'll do this more. It's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know you got to get to work, and I've got some stuff I've got to do. So, yeah, we are regular people with jobs.
Normal human beings. I use the word normal lightly.
Right. Oh, man. Thank you for being here, man.
Cool.
And thank y'all for listening to us just kind of ramble. And please come back and watch some more. Going forward, you're going to see some more of this kind of stuff. And you're going to see us, we'll be talking about politics from time to time, or other things that come up, current events and different stuff. And I'm going to try to keep it always interesting. And but anyway, thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.